This week's Parashat is Parashat Yitro, and the highlight of the Parasha, I would say, the centerpiece of the Parasha, is the Aseres HaDibros. And like any important book, like any important piece of literature, when you want to see what the most important or most vital part is, you want to look at the end. Whenever you want to see what the punchline is of a story, of a book, you look at the end. What's the makeh b'patish? What's the final blow of the Aseres HaDibros? And that will be revealing what such a major, important thing that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to convey to us, Yidden, is in our lifetime. After all of the Anochi and Lo Yeh Lecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ends the Aseres HaDibros with Lo Yisachmid. Lo Yisachmid Beis Re'echa, Lo Yisachmid Eishes Re'echa, V'Avdoi, V'Amasoi, V'Shoyer, V'Chamer, V'Chol Asher L'Re'echa. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us how we have to iron out a major flaw, a major chisaron. The lashon of the Balei Musar, the Archas Sadikim, is that there's something called kina and chemda, which comes from it's a kalkala, it's something that's ba migrius hanefesh. There's a cheapness. There's something inferior about our souls which constantly lure us to coveting and to being jealous and envious of other people and other things. And this is a downfall that so many of us have, that we focus on what other people have. We're jealous of their accomplishments, of their skills, of their talents, of their objects, of their possessions. And this is something that is so terrible and so corrosive that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts it at the end of the Aseres HaDibros, as if to say, the major thing at the end of the day, work on this. This is something that is so important. It's the linchpin of all of the Aseres HaDibros. The Archas Sadikim, in fact, and if you want to really work on kina, which is a major endeavor, kina is perhaps the hardest midah to undo. If a person is bitten by this bug called jealousy, it takes a lot of work. Everything takes a lot of work. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter used to say that to get rid of one bad midah, it's easier to learn Shas than to get rid of one bad midah. So nothing is easy per se, but kina is something that is all-consuming. It's a cancer that spreads throughout every part of our anatomy. We can't eat at night. We can't sleep at night. We can't do anything any time of the day. We're not able to function if we have this midah of kina. It's so all-encompassing. And the Archas Sadikim, if you want to work on this midah, is the place to begin. The Archas Sadikim has a shar called Shar HaKina, and Shar HaKina describes in great detail all about this midah and how terrible it is, how destructive and how corrosive it is, and how important it is to rid ourselves of. And in the Archas Sadikim, Shar HaKina, he says an amazing thing, and I think that it really speaks to what we're saying about its placement in Aseres HaDibros. The Archas Sadikim writes that, I don't know if he gets it from a medrash or it's his own, but he says, "V'adam asher achemda alav karoiv lavar al Aseres HaDibros." A person who has this midah, who has this terrible tumor called kina, he is very easy. It will be very easy for him to basically blow through all of the Aseres HaDibros, to commit every single violation contained in the Aseres HaDibros one after another, all because he did not contain and control this kina. And he goes through this. The Archas Sadikim, he describes a mashal, how a person had kina and a person was jealous of his next door neighbor. He lived in an apartment and he shared a wall with a neighbor, and he was very jealous of this neighbor's wife, and he was very jealous of this neighbor's property. And he heard through the wall, there was a thin wall separating them, and he heard the husband tell the wife, his next door neighbor, that he was jealous of, how he's going away on a business trip. So that night, after this husband left, this man broke a hole through the wall of the neighbor's house. So now he went straight into his next door neighbor's property. But it was Shabbos. So right away he was over Zocher Sema Shabbos L'Kadshei. He was Ma'anes the Isha, and he was over on Leisachmed, because Leisachmed is when you actualize the kina. When you have if I'm just jealous of my neighbor's wife, then I'm over Leisisave, but that's not Leisachmed until I actually do something. Until I actually go and do a Maisa, then I'm not over Leisachmed. He was Ma'anes the wife, he was over Leisachmed. V'shachav ima, he was over Leisinov. And then he stole the money. The woman started screaming. He killed her. He was over Leisirtzach. And then he stole. He was over Leisigzal, etc. He swore falsely in Bestin. He did a whole Chadgadya, every single thing. He knocked off every single one of the Aseres HaDibros in this pursuit of Chemda. And all this, and then eventually he was kaifer in Hashem because he got into trouble, he got caught, and then he was over Avodah Zarah. All of this because of Chemda. This is the linchpin of the Aseres HaDibros. Look at the end. The end of the Aseres HaDibros is telling you want to be a frum Yid, you have to control this midah of kina, because if you have kina, you're not going to be a Yid. Kina is so destructive a force, you will not be able to eat or sleep or breathe or do anything because you are all consumed by this jealousy of your friend. Now, if you look at the mamish, the last words of the Aseres HaDibros, if our thesis is true, that the end of the Aseres HaDibros is Meira on the whole Aseres HaDibros, the last words of the Aseres HaDibros are very key. The very last words of this, the last of the 10th, the last of the Aseres HaDibros, after describing not to be chaimed your friend's wife, don't be jealous of his slave, of his maidservant, of his shar, of his chamar, the last words are very instructive. And that's what we're going to be speaking about this morning. B'chol asher l're'echa. Everything that your friend has, don't be jealous of. Which is a strange way of signing off the Aseres HaDibros, because the Dibur already said in great detail all the things that we shouldn't be jealous of. If I tell you, don't be jealous of your friend's wife, of your friend's car, of your friend's servant, of your friend's kids, of your friend's, food, of your friend's... So then do I have to also say, and everything that your friend has, there's not too much left to the imagination. The Torah said already, don't be chaimed, eshes re'echa, and avdai, amasai, shayrei, chamayre. What's this v'chol asher l're'echa? Why is this necessary for the Torah to seal the Aseres HaDibros with this all-encompassing banner of v'chol asher l're'echa? I get it. I understand. I shouldn't be chaimed my friend's stuff. What is v'chol asher l're'echa coming to be marbe? So the Satmar Rebbe gives a beautiful pshat in what this means, v'chol asher l're'echa. And he says as follows. A lot of times, and it's so true, a lot of times we are jealous of our friends. We are jealous. We sit in shir with a certain fellow, and he is a superstar. He is able to do the Maramakaimah like in his sleep. He doesn't even need to look at the Maramakaimah. He knows the whole sugya back and forth. We don't know how, where, why. He's a baki already in the sugya. Everything that the Rebbe says, he raises his hand right away, has the perfect teretz for, or he shrugs it up right away. he's mamish, swatting away. Every guy in the shir is like nothing to him. He is the superstar of the shir. Or you're working with a fellow at work, and he's very smart and he's very good, and the boss loves him, and the boss keeps giving him promotions and raises, and you're like green with envy that he is so successful and you're not. You're trying to get into a graduate school, you're studying for the MCATs really hard, your friend is like playing ball all day, playing video games and doing nothing, and he's like acing all the practice MCATs, and you're really struggling, and sure enough, he gets into the best medical school, and you're like, and you weren't even able to make it into anything. It's jealousy. You're jealous of him. And it's natural. If there are people around us that are doing really well and seemingly better than us, it's a very natural thing to want to have what they have. So how do we prevent that? How do we prevent that from making our lives miserable because I so want to be that person that I don't want to be me? The way to combat this feeling is ask yourself the following question. If you could switch places with that person, think about that guy in shir for a second, or think about the person that's in your lab, or that you have something to do with, that you're jealous. He's better than you in ball. He's better than he has a better personality than you. He has a better. Ask yourself the following question. Do you really want to be him? If I could wave my magic wand and say, okay, you, Yankel, you're now going to be Chaim, would you say, okay, please, I want to do that, I want that? And the teretz is, no, I don't want to be him. I want to be me, but I just want to have his milah. I want to have one milah that he has. Do I want to be him? I don't want to be him. I'm happy with the way I look. I like my family. I think that I have a lot of milas that he doesn't have. I just want that one prat. I wish I had his brain. I wish I had his ability to play ball as well. I wish I had his money. I wish I had his look. But I don't want to be him. I want to be me plus. I want to be me with one mila that he has. I want to be a lamdan like he is, but I want to be me as a lamdan. One time I was walking with my wife. We used to live in Brooklyn, and we were in Brooklyn. They have a lot of like these big mansions, beautiful. Like if you drive through parts of Flatbush, you'll see like gorgeous mansions that really belong on like 100-acre estates, but they're in the middle of Flatbush, so they have like 3 inches of land in between to the next mansion. But they have like really stunning houses on corner properties that are huge, that never end, and gorgeous, like beautiful, exquisite, architecture and grass, and all 3 inches of it. But it's just beautiful. And one time, you can't help but like be impressed, regardless of how from you are or how not gashmias. But you pass by these homes and you say, wow, it'd be really nice to have that, like 10 rooms, 10 bedrooms, and a beautiful, big dining room and living room and couches and, basement. And, it's nice. It's nice to live that way. It must be a brand new home, with all the luxuries and all of the... And we were like walking by, and we were sort of like just, we were admiring a certain house that had just gone up. So like, wow, we're in like a, little, postage stamp apartment, and like could barely, have room to move. And, these people have like a huge house. And like we're wheeling our stroller, and we're happy, but we're like looking at that house, and all of a sudden there's a, the parents that live in this house, these wealthy people, they're wheeling out their child, but not in a stroller. This child is in a wheelchair. And the child is like a quadriplegic who can't move and who has like obvious major physical defects. And like we walked by and we're so, first of all, we were so disgusted by ourselves, and we were so deflated, and we felt so bad, like how dare we, like even at all, be mekanis somebody. You don't know what other people have. As much as you think, as much as you're mekana the other person, you want their house. You're jealous of them? You don't even know them. You don't know. You don't want to be them. You want to be you. Okay, you want somebody else. Somebody else's mila. You want somebody else's money. You want somebody else's looks. You want somebody else's talents. Somebody else's. But you don't want to be them. You want to be you. Zok the Sama Rebbe. It's not fair. It's not fair to be jealous of somebody else unless you're prepared to be them totally. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave each and every one of us our milas and our chesronos. You want to take it? Take it all. If you're going to be chaymed somebody else, be prepared for what you're getting. Because if you want v'chol asher l'reyecha, fine. Then we could start talking about chemda. But it's not fair. Be happy with what you have, because unless you're willing to accept what v'chol asher l'reyecha, everything that your friend has, it's not fair. You can't pick and choose. That's not the way it goes. You get what you get. He gets what he gets. You want to take his whole package? Okay, we'll talk. But until you're ready to say, I want to give up my entire being, and I want to have what he had, and I want to be him, you can't say, I want to be him for one mile. That's not fair. V'chol asher l'reyecha teaches you, be careful. Because when you're jealous of somebody else, know that you really want to be you. At the end of the day, there's a Yiddish expression that goes that if everybody would take their own saris and put it on a table, you'll always take your own peckle back. You'll always want your own saris at the end. After knowing what everybody else has, or even without knowing, I like what I don't have. At the end of the day, I'm happy with who I am. B'chol asher l'reyecha, know that be happy with who you are. That's the one poison pill. That's the one way to kill this chemda issue. You're jealous of him. You don't want to be him. You want something that he has. That's not fair. Be happy who you are, because you don't really want to be him. You want to be you. You're happy with what the Rebbeinu Shalom gave you. You just want things, and that's not fair to ask for some things of somebody else. You want to be you. You don't want to be your friend because you don't know, and you don't want to know what your friend really has. I want to be meisif two other mahalachim in this v'chol asher l'reyecha, and in general in this inyan of kinah, which I think are very important for us to know. Another pshat in v'chol asher l'reyecha. There's one of the most famous short stories. It's not a Jewish short story. I hope I'm allowed to say it. There's a short story that I think many of you may have read at one point or another in your life. I think it's required reading in most schools. There's a story, it's written by a French writer. It's called The Necklace. Very famous story. Very short, so it's easy to read if you want to ever look it up. And basically the gist of the story is that there was this couple. She was like a very needy type of woman. She was a French woman, a madame, and she was, her husband wasn't exactly wealthy. He was a hard-working person, but he was not wealthy. And this lady was never happy. She was always imagining herself as being like a high society, debutante, which goes to balls and fancy places. But her husband, Nebuch, was, he was working at a very menial type of job. He was a clerk and very low paid. He tried to make her happy, but she was never really happy. And she always dreamt, someday I'll be this, Cinderella who will be going to the ball and fancy. And one time, her husband was able, somehow, some way, to get an invitation to some government ball. And they were so excited and so happy. Finally, they get that evening together that they're going to the ball, and they're going to be, happy and in the limelight and chashuv, and they're going to be written up in the papers. But then she says, but I can't go to the ball because I don't have a gown to wear. And so he says, I can't wear a normal dress. I need a fancy, flowing gown like all the other fancy women are going to have. So he was saving up for a rifle. He had a couple of hundred francs in his drawer, and he was Meiser Nefesh for. He bought her a nice gown. And then she was about to be happy, but then again she wasn't happy because she said, I have no jewelry to wear. He says, well, maybe, put some flour, go buy some flowers and sew them on. He says, no, it doesn't pass. I need real jewelry. I want to go into the ball like everybody else. He says, but I don't have the money for it. Anyway, Akitza, she goes to her friend who is very wealthy, another madame, and who was also invited to the ball, and she says, would you mind if I borrowed some of your nice jewelry? She said, sure, no problem. And she goes and she looks at all the jewelry, and she chooses the most beautiful, gaudy necklace, diamond necklace, that she could find in the drawer. And she says, could I borrow this? She said, sure, go ahead, borrow it, enjoy it. And so she, is so excited. And she goes to the ball, and she's, wearing her dress and these fancy jewels. And, they had the time of their life, and everybody was, she was the belle of the ball. And then they went into a taxi, and they drove home. And then all of a sudden she gets home, and she realizes that the necklace that she had borrowed is no longer on her. And she starts panicking out, and the husband has to go out at night and start retracing their steps and calling the cab, companies and seeing if anyone left and promising rewards. And they couldn't find this necklace, and she didn't even know, who made the necklace, how much it cost. So she had to return it. She was supposed to return the necklace, the next day to the lady that lent it to her. Anyway, she goes to a few jewelry stores, and she finds one that's similar enough that probably, the woman who owned it would not really, would not be, would not notice perhaps the difference. But it was very expensive. It was 36,000 francs. I don't know how much that is, but it seems like it's a lot of money. And she borrows the money somehow. The husband goes and borrows the money from a loan shark, $36,000, and she takes it and she wraps it up and she gives it back and she thanks the lady, and the lady just puts it in her drawer. She doesn't even notice it. And the next 10 years of their life, they are living mamish b'dachkus, because they were living a pretty nice life. They weren't wealthy, but they lived comfortably. But now, because they had such an oil on them that they had to repay, she had to go and take terrible menial jobs, as a housekeeper and as a dishwasher and as, a launderer, anything that she could to make extra money to pay this loan back. 10 years, 10 hard years, her and her husband had to take extra jobs and mamish live b'dachkus until her whole appearance changed. She used to be a pretty woman, and then she became, her skin became dark and her complexion became, very unattractive, all because of this necklace. 10 years later, finally they repaid it. They repaid every last franc that they owed with interest. And she was walking through the park, and she sees this madam that she had borrowed the jewels from 10 years ago. She hadn't seen them because she was so busy, working and suffering. And the lady at first didn't recognize her because she looked so different after all these years and all that hard labor. And she says, she reminds her of who she is, and she says, and she tells her the whole story about how she really lost that necklace, and finally, Baruch Hashem, she was able to, she bought a new one, she repaid it, and finally she was able to, to be Mevarach al Mugmar. She was finished with a chayiv, and the lady looks at her and says, that wasn't a real necklace. She says, that was like costume jewelry. That necklace didn't cost more than a few hundred francs. And that's how the story ends. And the Musar Haskell is obvious that so many times in life we spend looking at Yenim, and we think that somebody has something, and it's just an illusion. She spent 10 years of her life because she was under the impression that it was for sure real. And she bought a real thing and returned it to her, but the truth is it wasn't real. Her friend never even had those jewels. She had costumes. It wasn't diamonds. It wasn't Aisha. It was nothing. And I believe that that's pshat, a pshat in this pasuk as well. When you're jealous of your friend, and you're jealous and you're looking at them, and you're looking at their wife, and wow, he has such a great marriage. And his kids, oh look, they're so cute and shul, they daven nicely, they're so sweet, so zis. And, Avdoi, Amasa, they have help working for them, and they have Shar and a Chamar, they have a beautiful car in the driveway. They have so much going for them. You're like looking at them, and you're like in awe of all that they have, and you're like, this guy has it made. So the Torah is saying, be careful. And know and ascertain before you get those juices flowing in you, before you get too jealous, make sure that it's taka v'chal asher l'reyecha. Make sure that your friend actually has what you think he has. Make sure that he actually owns those things. Make sure that what you're in your mind fantasizing about him and how great he has it, make sure that it's true. Because a lot of times, it's not true. A lot of the times, the things you think are true are really false. And I'll tell you something, most of the time they are. There are so many of my friends, I remember when I was growing up as a kid, you go to friends' houses, and so many times, whatever it is that your friend has, you think your friend's like parents. Your friend's parents, they always have the great marriage. Your parents, they have disagreements all the time and this and that. Your friend's parents, they're so nice to each other, they're so normal, they're so good to their kids. And then like a few years later, you grow up and you hear that those marriages didn't last. And what you say, like, how did that happen? And the Torah says that, you thought, because you were there for like an hour on a Shabbos afternoon, things looked pretty good, so they had everything that they had. And, and relatively speaking, you don't have that. Your family doesn't have that. But it's not true. You don't know what goes on behind other people's doors. A lot of times, you think a guy has a lot of money because he wears flashy suits and he has, a fancy house and a fancy car. You know how many cars, when I was growing up as a kid, it might be true, there was no such thing as leasing a car. So if you drove a Cadillac, that meant that you were wealthy, because it meant you have to go and spend $30,000-$40,000 cash, put it down on the counter, and then you could pull out with your Cadillac. Today, every guy, every bacher in yeshiva is driving a brand new Accord or a brand new Lexus. What's different? It's $300 a month, $400 a month. But you're looking, wow, that guy must, he has it all. He has a fancy. It's not his car. He doesn't own that car. He has a fancy house. It's not his house. It's mortgaged up to the roof. He owns maybe, 1% of the house, and he's struggling to make payments, but you already paskin that he has that house. You go and you see, him and his wife, and they're giggling and they're laughing. You know, wow, he has a great marriage. You know about his marriage? You know anything about them? You know if they're fighting, if they're getting along. You know if they have shalom bayis. You know if she's normal. Before you have chemda on somebody else, before you give that ayin hara on other people, make sure that it's taka v'chal asher l'reyecha. Make sure that your friend actually has that. Because a lot of times it's not asher l'reyecha. You thought it was, but it's not. It's an illusion. And just like that lady that was working her whole life, struggling, because she was so jealous of Yenim who had necklaces, and because of that she suffered her whole life. That's how it is with us. We could suffer this evil eye, this jealousy. Our whole life people are plagued by jealousy. They're so jealous of Yenim. How is he able to be so matzliach? And the truth is he's not. He's not matzliach. It was all a facade. It was all just one big show. None of it was true. None of it was real. And you were spending your whole life spinning your wheels, working so hard, giving him such an ayin hara for something that wasn't even true. It wasn't his. It was a perception that you had which was erroneous. It was a mistaken, faulty view and vision that you had. And for that you're suffering. So far we have two pshatim in how to combat chemda from the words V'chal asher l'reacha. The Satmar Rebbe, who says V'chal asher l'reacha, make sure you want everything, because you don't want everything. You want certain things, but that's not fair. You want to be him, take him in his totality, and you don't want that, trust me. And number two, make sure that it's V'chal asher l'reacha before you give him that ayin hara, and you're so jealous, make sure that he actually has it. Because more often than not, he doesn't have it. More often than not, he's suffering, he's in debt. And you think that he has it so great, and he's really up at night, sleepless because he can't pay for all these things that he's buying and that he's owning. And one last pshat in V'chal asher l'reacha, which is so important as well. Probably the most important thing that we'll ever learn together. V'chal asher l'reacha is coming la'afuke. V'chal asher l'reacha, don't be jealous of. Don't be jealous. Don't want so badly something that somebody else has. La'afuke what? You should want badly something else. You should want badly what you have. You're looking at somebody else. You're spending your whole life focusing on what he has. And you're missing out on all the gifts that you have. There's a famous story about a diamond dealer in Belgium who, if you ever were in Antwerp, like the main business, the main commerce in Antwerp is the diamond district. There's a little bourse, I think it's called, and it's like a few blocks, and it's sort of like very European, and there are stores that people are buying and selling and polishing diamonds, and that's the main industry in Antwerp. It's having a lot of trouble now because there are other people that are finally competing with the Jews. There are Indians and others, but that's the main industry. And there was a Yid that had a diamond store on this main strip. And he goes to the Rav, and he says, Rebbe, I need an eitzah. He says, I need to know, my business is not doing so well, and there's a guy across the street from me who I daven with, and his business is Baruch Hashem, it's booming. Booming business. The Rav says, how do you know it's booming? He says, well, very easy. He says, I have a window, and I stand by my window, and I peer out of the front of my store window, and I'm looking at his business, and I see that there are people mamish coming, milling in and out, and standing on line to buy his chayra, and says, and I know that my store lighting is much better than his store lighting. I have very fancy, beautiful, fluorescent lights, and it's a pleasure to be in my store. I give out nice coffee, nice couches, nice chairs. It says my schayra, I happen to know, is much better, much cleaner, much brighter, beautiful schayra that I have that my friend I see doesn't have. He doesn't get that schayra that I have. And my personality, I think, is much better. And and I see that the people are coming in to his store, and they're not coming into my store, and I can't figure it out. I'm jealous, and I don't know what to do. So the Rav says, I know exactly what's wrong. He says a person can only mind one business. You can't mind two businesses. He says, what do you mean mind? I only have one store. He says, no, you have two stores. He says, because you're busy with your store, and you're busy with his store. He says, that guy is busy with just his own business. He's looking at his chayra, he's busy with his customers, he's busy with his prakmatcha, and so he's able to matzliach. He says, but you're so consumed by him, you're so busy with his store that you can't concentrate on your own store. You have a great store, but you're too busy with him that you can't even appreciate your own store. And that's what we go through every single day of our life. We're so busy looking at other people, what other people have, and their kishron, and their schayra, and their cheftzis, that we don't even understand how good the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us what we have. The famous Mishnah at the beginning of the 4th parak of Avos, Ezeu Asher Hasameach B'chel Kai. You know how you define wealth and success in life? It's not so much how much you have. Rapam used to say that the man, if you last week's parasha, the man was something that you couldn't get a better type of food than the man. The man was free. The man tasted like anything that you want. It had the texture and the taste of whatever you want. It was able to, if you're in the mood for sushi, it tastes like sushi, pastrami, pizza, whatever you want, that was the man. And you didn't have any stomach troubles. It all was nibla b'meyav, it didn't go out, so you didn't have to worry about, getting a bellyache from it. It was the perfect food, says Rapam. And what do you find? That Klal Yisrael were Messiah. We don't want this lachem hakloikel, this terrible bread that you're giving us. They had enough. They rebelled against the man. How do you explain that? How do you explain that a person that has such good stuff could actually throw it back in the Rebbeinu Shalom's face? And the answer, says Rapam, is very easy. That happiness is not totally in fact. It's not that you have $1 million and I have $10,000, so that's what makes me... Happiness has nothing to do with what you have. It's all in perception. If you feel wealthy, you're wealthy. If you feel poor, you're poor. You might have $1 billion, but if your competitor has 10 billion, you're poor. I might have 50 cents in my pocket, but if I feel happy with those 50 cents, I'm a rich man. I have a friend who lived in a very, very, affluent city. And he told me once that he walked home, the richest guy in town, they walked home from shul together, and he was standing in front of this guy's house, and this guy had one of those mansions that we were talking about before. It wasn't in Brooklyn, it was out in Long Island. In a mansion. And this man was telling him, he was confiding in my friend, saying how he's probably going to knock down his house. It's like, you're knocking that down? That house is like a masterpiece. How would you knock that house down? It's like it's a $3 million estate. He says, I know. And it used to really be beautiful, and I loved it. He says, but there's a guy in town who's building a bigger house than I, and now I look at my house, and I look at it as if it's a shack. I don't look at it anymore as such a beautiful house, because it's not the biggest anymore in town. Now, for us, that might be like a sickness. But everything is, relative. He's not happy anymore because somebody has more than him. But when he had more than everybody else, he was happy. Because happiness, for a lot of people, is perception and comparing. Now, if you knew... Let's go to the yeshiva example, which is on a much smaller scale, but not less important, just different. That superstar in Shir that knows everything. Yeah, we're jealous. Why are we jealous? Because, we're so busy concentrating on what he knows. Everybody's like tumbling. He's a genius. He's an Eli. He's a this and a that. But I have also a good head. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave me a good brain. I'm smarter than a lot of the other guys in Shir. And if I would concentrate on what I have and what the Rebbeinu Shalom gave me, I could be the happiest guy in the world. The problem is that I'm so busy looking at everybody else that I don't even know what I have. Person is, let's take what the pasuk is talking about. I'm chaymed eshes re'echa. I'm chaymed my neighbor's wife. Why? Well, she's very pretty, she's very nice, very happy, so I look at my wife and I'm like, she doesn't compare to her. Forget about your neighbor's wife. Look at your wife. Your wife is a wonderful person. Your wife is also very pretty. Your wife is also very smart, very happy, very good. She cooks for me, she cleans for me, she irons my shirts, and send that out. But but she does a lot. She does a lot for me. She cooks and she bakes challah and she's a great mother. But I'm so busy looking at Eishes Re'echa that I don't even know what I have. I don't have a wife in my mind. Because I'm not Sameach B'chelki. I don't realize the Rebbeinu Shalom bestowed upon me a gift of a wonderful woman. I'm so busy looking at other people's women that I can't appreciate my own wife. Is she perfect? Maybe not. But she was good enough for me to marry. She's good enough to raise my children. She's good enough when the Rebbeinu Shalom gave me a wife. I have to be chaymed her. But you should be chaymed your own wife. I have a car. Is it the fanciest car in the world? No. Are there people that pull up in their driveways with nicer cars? Perhaps. But the Rebbeinu Shalom gave me a car. The car gets me from point A to point B. And it's good, it works. Be chaymed that car. Want that car. Be happy for that car. Run to your car and be happy that it turns on. And be happy that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it to you. But be chaymed your own shar. Baruch Hashem, I have a shar. How many people don't have a shar? My father, Olav Shalom, Hareini Kaparas Mishkabay. He was Baruch Hashem. He was a successful businessman, and he drove a car that I think it was not sure of the year. I think it was at least 10 years old, at least 10 to 12 years old. It was a Lincoln Continental, but I think it was like a 2001, I think. I'm not sure even. I don't know if they had numbers. It was so long ago. I don't know if they counted the year yet. But it was such an old car, and so many times, and the air conditioner didn't work, and the heat didn't work so well. And, in the winter, I was like schwitzing, and I was like, Dad, can we turn the air conditioner on? He turned it on. It was like heat blasting out. So we had to open the windows, which barely opened. It was like, Dad, I'm leasing an Accord. I pay like $200 a month. I think you might be able to, find $200 a month. You give $50,000 to yeshiva a year. You could probably find, $200 a month to lease an Accord, maybe. You don't want to do a new town car, because say about it, but an Accord. My father was not a consummate. My father, Baruch Hashem, for yeshivas and for me and for my sister, he lavished us with whatever we needed. Bakal mikol kol. But when it came to himself, he would always say the same thing. He says, this car has been good to me. This car has been good to me. Baruch Hashem, I should throw it out? There's a concept of having an appreciation for what you have. We're so busy always waiting for the new model to come out, whether it's the new iPhone or the new this or the new car or the new, every person Lefi's Madrega, the new video game or the new textbook or the new sefer, you have a sefer. Be happy you have a sefer. What do you always need the new and approved? You can't appreciate what you have. And the truth is, my father, one of the reasons why my father didn't get a new car is because he had thousands of Torah tapes. Rabbi Frand and others, and the new cars, they stopped with it. You can only use the CDs, and he didn't have so many CDs. He had many more regular tapes, so he didn't want to. It was basically I was magdir his car as a mobile tape recorder. That's basically what it was. It wasn't more than that. Got him from point A to point B, that he was able to listen to Torah Shirim. But in us new generation people, everything is disposable. I don't want to sound like an old timer. I'm like that also. We're always waiting to, we're so quick to throw everything out in the garbage. Everything, if it's not brand new, trade it in, sell it on eBay, get rid of it. We don't want it. We want to move it out, and we want to get the new one. We're never able to appreciate the gift that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us. If you have a wife, if you have a shar, if you have a chamar, if you have anything, you have to be happy for that. Be sameach b'chelkai. V'alkulam v'chol asher l'reacha. Whatever your friend has, why is the Torah saying that? La'afuke v'chol asher loch. Your potential is so great. What we have inside, we have no idea how much greatness we have within. We're so busy with other people, how they have it better and they have it so good, and if only I had this and all. You don't know how much you have in you. Concentrate on what you do have. Concentrate on the fact that Baruch Hashem, you have eyes that you're able to see. You know how many people don't have eyesight? If you have, let's say a person, Rahman al-Islam, was blind. And I told that person that, that there's a new technology that came out that you could restore your vision. Okay, how much does it cost? It costs $10 million. $10 million, a surgeon in Switzerland who will do the procedure for $10 million, you get your eyesight. What do you say? It's too much, forget it. And then I'll pass. You'll beg, you'll borrow, you'll steal until you get that $10 million and fly to Switzerland and get that procedure. Right? It's pashut. So now, everyone in this room has vision. So that means that what? We're all worth $10 million. Because we didn't have to go for that. Just because we don't have to do a procedure, that means that we're poor. We're $10 million in our pocket because we have eyesight. We're able to walk. We're able to talk. We're able to be in a yeshiva. We have great rabbeim. We're able to have svarim galore, food, nobody's starving. We have heat in the winter, air conditioning in the summer. What are we missing exactly that makes us so miserable with our lot? V'chol asher l'reyecha is telling you, the Torah is saying, don't do v'chol asher l'reyecha. Don't be chaymed everything that Yenim has, but there is something that you should be chaymed for once in your life. Be chaymed what you have. Appreciate for once what you do have. You have a shirt on your back, be happy. It's not the fanciest shirt, it's not the... Who cares? You have a shirt. You have food in your stomach. Okay, so you can't afford to go every day to the fancy restaurant and get a... You have food? Get down on your hands and knees and thank the Rebbeinu Shalom for what we have. You have a wife, Baruch Hashem, you're married. There are many people that are not married, that are single, that are looking, that are miserable. You're married, be happy with your wife. Be chaymed your wife. Come home and say, thank you for marrying me. I don't deserve you, but you agreed to marry me. We entered a bris hanisuin, thank you. And I appreciate your cooking and your cleaning and all that you do for me. You have parents, you have to appreciate your parents. Other people's parents are cooler, they're wealthier, they're frummer, they're less, whatever. But you have parents, call them up and say, I love you, and thank the Rebbeinu Shalom during Maidim for giving you parents. That's what the Torah wants. That's what the Torah has Messiah in the Aseres HaDibros with. Laisachmai, forget about what Yenim has. Concentrate for once in your life on B'chal Asher L'cha. Focus inward for a change. It's all perception. It's all a matter of how happy you are. It's not what you have, it's what you understand you are blessed with. If you're able to count your blessings and appreciate the milas that you have and the human potential that the Rebbeinu Shalom has invested in you, you will walk out of here dancing and singing, as all of us should every single morning. Every morning you wake up, you say, Ma'idani l'fanecha, I'm able to get out of bed. I don't need people helping me out of bed. I don't have to be in a hospital. I don't need a respirator to breathe. I have food. I'm able to enjoy the food. These are blessings that are impossible to describe. But the reason why we don't look at them as blessings is because we perceive that other people have more. But that has to change. V'chol asher l'reyecha is the Yisr. But the tzivui is that you should be chaymed kol asher l'cha. Look at what you do have. Be sameach b'chelkacha. And if a person is able to find happiness within his marriage, within his family, within his possessions, within himself, with the potential that he has, he will be the happiest person in the world. Rapam once said, or many times I think used to say, something that he read once in a magazine, that people are always looking, they're searching and seeking the state. What's the Lashon? That people are searching out for the city of happiness. People are always looking for the city of happiness, but they don't realize that it's all in the state of mind. The city of happiness is in the state of mind. It's all in your mind. Whether you're happy or not is all in your mind. That's the secret to life. That's the trick that nobody knows except for you. If you understand that the place to find happiness is in your mind, to understand this last of the Aseres HaDibros, and perhaps the greatest of the Aseres HaDibros, because it unlocks all of the Anochi Hashem Elokecha. You could be a happy Yid. You could believe in Hashem, have bitachon in Him. Throw away all of the Avodah Zaros in the world that are alluring us. Appreciate our parents, appreciate Shabbos. Keep away from all different types of Averos. All why? Because I know who I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm happy. And I thank the Rebbeinu Shalom every step that I take, that I'm able to take it. That's a gift. That is the key to life. And if we could understand all these Yisaitis that we've discussed today, how it's important to know that what we are is important, is special, and we love who we are, and the fact that somebody else has one thing, but you don't want to be him anyway, so forget about him. That's a V'chala Shel Arecha. V'chala Shel Arecha, the necklace. Make sure to understand that before you're jealous of somebody, make sure that that person really has those things that you're coveting, because 9 times out of 10 he doesn't. And finally, be chaymed, kol asher lecha, the things that you have, be happy with. If we're able to take, I think, all of these 3 things and sort of melt them into our hearts, then I think our lives will be so much better. In Mitzvah Hashem, and have a wonderful Shabbos.